Good afternoon and welcome to another Q News book review. My name is Michael James and this is part of our series that we started in 2021 where we read some of our favourite or up-and-coming books that are out, and I write a little bit of a review for you which you get to read in the magazine, and then my favourite part is I get to chat with some of the people that write these books. Now, this month was something a little bit different from some of the last few that I've read. A memoir again, but a memoir of a different sort. There's a man many of you may be familiar with, or a woman. Sometimes you know him as Christian, and sometimes you know him as Trish. His name is Christian Hull, and he has created his latest memoir, which is called Leave Me Alone, which I've just finished off last week. And he joins me today. Hello, Christian.
Hello. Please leave me alone. I'd like to finish this conversation as quickly as possible. As you can tell, I hate people. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for having me. I love doing this.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. I was expecting the interview might involve you telling me to fuck off, but it didn't, so that's great.
Oh, well, see, I love telling people to fuck off, but as a term of endearment.
Yes. Now, that's what I found really interesting, because there's this Christian persona, and you've built it around all of your different characters, and most recently, your fuck off shop, where you want everybody to fuck off and leave you alone. And then so when I'm picking up the book to read, and I thought, I wonder how much of a bitch he's going to be in here and really hating everybody. And I think that probably the most interesting thing, which, as you said there, for a term of endearment, was how endearing and I suppose kind you were to all the people in your life.
Yeah, I feel like a terrible human being because I hate people, and everyone, my friends and family especially, have just been all so lovely and supportive of me over the years. And I'm like, oh, do I have to pay back the favor? I'm like, oh, please just leave me alone. Like, oh, I'm very selfish. But the book it's a reflection of, I guess, my childhood. I started writing it about 4 years ago when I went through a bit of a traumatic work experience, and I needed to sort of get out of my own head. And so I would just go sit in the sun in Melbourne at a cafe, oh, so fancy, with my laptop. I'm a writer, everyone, and just, word vomit all these stories up. And I had no intention of it ever being published. But, about a year went by and I got a knock on the door from Allen and Unwin, who were the publishers, to say, oh, do you want to do a book? I was like, yes, I've already done a little bit of it. And then they were like, all right, give us 70,000 words. I was like, what? 70,000? Like, it had taken me a year to do 12,000. I was like, oh, all right, better get to work. And so that's why there's a lot of, mostly my life is on Grindr. So that's why a big chunk of the book, there's just like 2 chapters dedicated to all my Grindr escapades. So that really bulked out the content.
Well, yeah, look, when reading the book, it really did come down to 3 key factors of Christian's life. His childhood and his upbringing with his family, his radio career, which is actually really fascinating to read the behind the scenes there as to where you started and crept up the ladder and how that kind of evolved into Trish and your little empire that you have, and then Christian's sex life.
Yeah, just as a side, yeah, all the sexy times. Yeah, it's broken down into like the 3 main things that have made me who I am: childhood, giving up everything to work in radio, and then just being a massive whore in every city that I lived in.
Well, to go into the childhood part, I found it interesting. It was great because it was so happy, and we have so many stories for queer people where we don't have it easy. We don't have great lives growing up, and a lot of people have that struggle when they come out, and family and acceptance. Your family were just great. I love that you didn't even have a coming out, although I suppose we have seen how gay you are, so maybe you really didn't need to.
Yeah, I get mistaken for a woman a lot. So I think my parents knew early on. But I've read a lot of stories. You've seen the movies, and your heart breaks for a lot of people. And I've been so fortunate, and almost, feel guilty in a way sharing how fortunate I've been. I had a father that worked for Qantas for 40 years and mum that worked in fashion. Like, that's 2 of the biggest gay industries. Of course they were going to have a gay son. And so I think because they were surrounded by that sort of culture, and they're naturally just such wonderful people that have supported me through all my weird endeavours, that I've been able to sort of flourish and be, touch wood, still successful as I have been. And my brothers as well. I've got triplet brothers. So at 5 years old, in walks mum from the hospital with 3 babies. And I was like, what? Who are these and why is there so many of them?
Yes, and I love your relationship with your brothers and how tolerant they were of your attention needs, shall we put it.
So tolerant. They're still so tolerant. Yeah, I love them.
Well, they played a heavy part in the book, but also really interestingly, I loved the radio journey. I've worked in that industry before, so I know how tough it can be, and I've seen that struggle. So reading that through the pages and seeing all those different radio jobs you went through, and particularly the one that you didn't even talk about, which from what we've read could have been quite hard, to get you right to where you are now. How hard was it to just keep going and going?
Um, Look, it was when you work in radio, you really give up your life. You don't get any personal time. So you sacrifice a lot, and I wanted to do that. And so the 9 years I'd spent at SCA, which is the radio company I worked for, were amazing. The people were incredible. You know, the work is hard, and my goal going into it was I wanted to be Carl Sanderlands. You know, I wanted to have the #1 breakfast show. You know, he was big, loud, very camp, and I was like, I tick all those boxes. But it sort of just didn't happen. And I got pigeonholed as, you know, oh, I'm only doing red carpet stuff. And I could see being, you know, the stereotypical gay. And then, you know, 5 years in, I was like, look, this is not where I want to be. This is not what I want to do. And so I completely changed paths. And that's when Facebook and Instagram was sort of becoming quite large. And so I started to film the breakfast show and the interviews and upload them onto socials as a form of marketing. And that's how I developed all my video editing. And, you know, after doing that for a few years, someone was like, well, why don't you just film your own stuff and edit it and upload it? And I was like, oh, it's a good idea. I haven't thought of that. So I was working in radio and then I was coming home. And sometimes I was still, you know, staying in the radio studio, uploading my own stuff on company time. But I was doing it that way. And then it sort of just exploded when I discovered Trish, who I model off my parents, because, you know, they had 4 boys. So it was a chaotic household. And I just imitated how they parented. And I didn't realize that, you know, all parenting is virtually the same. It's just a parent screaming at their children, and everyone started to relate to that. And so I started to gain quite a lot of traction.
You did, and like I certainly remember watching that take off, and it was just crept and crept out. And there's this interesting tidbit in the book about how that content kind of crept from Christian's page onto the Austereo network pages. And I remember watching them creep out. I was like, he's turning up on a lot of the Austereo pages. I wonder if he's actually in control of that. So there was a little bit of behind the scenes there.
Yeah, I absolutely. Well, he was my reasoning behind it. Because I was working on I had like access to every single radio station Facebook page, you know, Today FM, Fox FM, all these big stations with hundreds of thousands of followers. And we were sharing other people's videos. You know, you had you know, random Jackson O'Doherty stuff, you had Lad Bible, and you had all these viral clips that people were putting together and other comedians. And I was like, well, why can't we share mine? Like, I work for the company. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. And so I started to share my own clips, which, I mean, totally selfish. But I was like, oh no, they sort of fit the demo. I had all my excuses ready to go, and I got away with it for a little bit. And this was really, really early on. So I maybe had like 200 or 300 followers on Facebook at this point. And then I started doing it, and they were doing pretty well. And then at about maybe 3 months later, you know, you get the knock at the door to say, hey, you probably shouldn't be doing that. Please stop. And at that point, I'd probably got about 20,000 followers. So I was really comfortable with, I had my little audience and I was able to grow. But I think at that point, I was sort of a little disappointed, because I was like, well, hang on a minute. Like, there's something here in this social space that we've tapped into. We had people like Tanya Hennessy, other creators like the Roundabout crew, who were quite successful on social media. And we're all employed by, you know, SCA, but they were like, oh, you can't post on no, don't do that. I'm like, but we're sharing people that don't even work at this company. Like, I just didn't understand the logic. But, you know, I sucked it up and I was like, fine, I've abused that system for as long as I can. And then it was just, I had a page with, you know, 20,000 people. So I was pretty happy. And, you know, it's hard. I respect the radio management, but they were a little bit older, and a little bit not understanding what was happening, all the changes, and how YouTube was this huge thing that they probably should have got on, back in 2014, but they didn't get it. And those of us that did jump on it are now doing pretty well.
Yeah, well, you got in the door quick enough, and obviously the 20,000 was all you needed, and the rest is history. Now you got a book.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird.
Did you ever really think when you started writing down those 12,000 words that was actually going to be something that you were going to manage to sell and put out there to the world?
Look, very confident in myself. Yeah, I'd always wanted to, if it was going to be self-published or have a publisher, the goal was, maybe in 7 to 10 years, I would have, a book out of stories of my life. I didn't expect it to be so quick. But, I did start with the intention of publishing it out to the world. But it's so weird that, I had a publisher that had the confidence. So it was good.
Yeah, well, I mean, they publish some great works. So many of the things I've been reading lately, keep picking up and go, oh, that's Alabama. Again, they're great.
Yeah, I know. And then there's mine. You're like, what are they doing?
But look, it's really great insight for anybody that's followed you and is like, how did he get here? What is he doing? What is going on in his mind? I really, really enjoyed getting all those different aspects, finding out sort of the journey that you got to, and then obviously where you are now. And I suppose there's a big question when I got to the end of it. I'm like, this is really good. But what's next? What's next for Christian? He's got a book. He's got all of the things on the internet. He's doing all he wants. He makes his fuck off shop. He hides away in his little apartment in Brisbane and doesn't leave it ever. So what's he going to do? What happens next?
Oh, God, that is the $1 million question. I've never had a plan. I've never planned for anything. Everything has sort of just happened. If I keep continuing to upload videos and doing weird, shitty TikToks, opportunities just sort of have come from it. I was asked to be in a movie. Like, I'm not an actor, and I was promptly, when I did the movie, very edited out of it because I was so bad. But that these opportunities, and I met people that way, and then the book comes about because to be honest, the book's out because I've got a big following, and I'm not a good writer. I'm not an accomplished author. It's come from the videos. So I think just keep making content. I've hired 2 staff. I have 2 staff. I have a video editor and a little producer. So we're looking at making some big video series, traveling once the borders and the rest of the world opens up, and, maybe go for a skydive, or I don't know.
The world is your oyster. Anything you want to do. Well, look, Christian, it's been fantastic chatting to you. And anybody that wants to find out more needs to get down the shops, pick up the book. It is called Christian Hull, Leave Me Alone. You can find it in all the places where they sell books, or can I get it on your website as well?
Yeah, so I'm only selling signed copies on the website because I can't compete with Big W's low prices. So if you want a signed copy, Big W or Target, because they're real cheap.
But if you'd like a signed copy, your website is?
It's surprisingly, it's needafuck.com.
Needafuck.com is where you can pick
up. What a URL. Yeah.
I know. I love it. It's I was expecting something like christianhull.com.au, but no.
No, that's boring.
Right. So needafuck.com.au. You can get the Leave Me Alone by Christian Hull. Thank you very, very much for joining us, Christian. And we won't see you around Brisbane or anywhere else. We'll just look for you on the internet.
Yes, please. Thank you, Michael.